As a mathematics education researcher, have you been a member of an interdisciplinary group? As you reflect on that experience, were you contributing your knowledge and expertise as a mathematics education researcher? Or did your involvement go beyond that? We know that mathematics education researchers join interdisciplinary groups to collaborate on conducting research to contribute and grow the field of mathematics education. Yet we know little about the ways of work and discourse in such interdisciplinary groups. In this video, we share some insights into some representative practices described by a mathematics education researcher who participated in an interdisciplinary group. But to understand the practices experienced by the mathematics education researchers in interdisciplinary groups, we need to first understand mathematics education as a discipline itself. Mathematics education as a discipline in itself is interdisciplinary. Early mathematics education researchers were disciplinary experts in mathematics, psychology, education, and linguistics who theorized about mathematics, teaching, and learning. Valero referred to this as the didactic triad of mathematics education and encouraged opening the context of the didactic triad to involve a network of social practices within and beyond the triad. Such practices represent specialized forms of work and discourse we built on existing literature to describe practices as the established or emergent ways of being, operating, and interacting with others during a collective activity. Since these practices could be disciplinary specific and unique to each discipline, mathematics education researchers may face challenges when interacting with researchers from other disciplines. Some of these challenges were reported in published research articles that included a mathematics education researcher working in an interdisciplinary group. Some practices were also reported in these articles. And we identified working towards research interests, cultivating trust and open-mindedness, and understanding institutional support as some of the interdisciplinary practices reported in the existing research articles. However, these practices were reported in research articles that mainly focused on reporting the findings of the study rather than describing the interdisciplinary practices utilized by the group. Therefore, we aim to expand the previous work by exploring practices described by a mathematics education researcher who participated in an interdisciplinary group. To do that, we started by conducting semi-structured interviews with 5 mathematics education researchers who were part of different interdisciplinary groups. In this video, we present a case study of one of the 5 mathematics education researchers. We'll call her Amelia. Amelia was the leader of an interdisciplinary group, and the transcript from Amelia's semi-structured interview constitutes the data for our study, where we used grounded theory to analyze Amelia's descriptions of working in an interdisciplinary group. This analysis was in 3 phases. In the first phase, we used our definition of practices as a conceptual framework to identify instances where Amelia described practices either she or the interdisciplinary group used. Each instance was coded as being, interacting, or operating. In the second phase, we used instances from the transcript to refine our descriptions and definitions of the being, interacting, and operating categories. We also created phrases that summarized the practices identified in each category. This analytical process allowed us to enhance our definition of practices in addition to identifying a collection of practices within each category. The third phase of the analysis entailed using the revised definitions and collections of practices to recode our data to identify and describe practices reported by Amelia. To illustrate, this excerpt was coded in the first stage as an instance of a practice fitting into the being category. As Amelia referred to her identity as a mathematics education researcher, noting that she still had her life in her discipline while also recognizing that her work in the interdisciplinary group had enriched and expanded her life. Then in the second phase of coding, the phrase we created to summarize this practice was perception of self as a leader in a discipline and compared to other disciplines. Our finding consists of 5 representative practices. Keep in mind that the 5 practices described in this video do not represent all possible practices. Starting with the practices in the being category, which refers to Amelia's description of her individual identity as a part of the group or how she perceived others as part of the group. Amelia referred to her identity as a leader in developing a proposal for the project and the identity of others within the group as collaborators. She intentionally wanted to make spaces for her colleagues' voices and create a truly collaborative project. She also described her views of others in the group by recognizing that everyone in the group had different knowledge and expertise. The practices in the interacting category refer to Amelia describing ways in which she and others in the interdisciplinary group developed and communicated standards for discourse related to the group or negotiated the meanings of ideas, frameworks, or relationships. Amelia explained that barriers and mistrust interfered with people from different disciplines working together. We interpreted this excerpt as the group breaking down barriers by negotiating and reconstructing ideas to start developing common understandings. The practices in the operating category refer to Amelia recounting ways of doing within the group and structures that allowed the group to conduct work. One practice identified in the operating category was assigned the phrase having a common purpose. Amelia recounted the goal that motivated the creation of the interdisciplinary endeavor, developing curricula between mathematicians, scientists, mathematics educator, and science educator. This common purpose motivated interdisciplinary members to work as part of a group. Another practice in the operating category is described as intentional team building, where Amelia reported that her interdisciplinary group had understandings that allowed the group members to work with autonomy and in collaboration. These understandings encouraged the members of the group to work together as they used and shared existing experiences. This approach acknowledged the value of everyone's knowledge and previous experiences, which allowed them to share and try new ideas in addition to learning about working together as a team. A third practice in the operating category was assigned the phrase understanding external constraints, where the way a group is positioned within and between other groups or institutions can afford or constrain work progress. Amelia described how knowing the way institutions operated allowed her to identify ways to work within those institutions. Knowing that significant changes would require approvals from outside of the group, she explained that the group focused on building from what people were already doing to allow the members to see their work in the interdisciplinary group as attainable and meaningful. Another finding involves the relations between these practices. Although practices were identified as being, interacting, and operating, we found that the categories were not mutually exclusive. Practices can align with the description of more than one category. For example, understanding external constraints can describe a way of operating. It may also include ways of interacting as people make sense of policies that exist with different groups. Our study took up Valero's recommendation to explore the network of social practices involved when mathematics education researchers work in interdisciplinary groups. We showed evidence that when mathematics education researchers are part of interdisciplinary groups, they engage in practices that involve ways of being, interacting, and operating. To feel sustained in interdisciplinary interactions, mathematics education researchers need to be aware of who they are and how they see others in the group, negotiate and develop discourse standards, and identify ways to collaborate within and among their institutions and groups. Finally, when mathematics education researchers join an interdisciplinary group, not only do they contribute to expanding and growing the field of mathematics education, they also grow as individuals. To continue this work, we hope to expand on these categories to analyze the transcripts from the remaining interviews with other mathematics education researchers who were involved in an interdisciplinary collaboration. We are looking forward to discussing these ideas with you during our session, and we welcome your feedback, comments, and questions. Check the description box for a list of references mentioned in this video. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to discussing our study with you.